Welcome to TC Talk Sports. This is part 2 of me filling out my bracket, the perfect bracket. If you're here from part 1, welcome back. If this is new to you, go back and watch part 1 and come back here for part 2. This is what the bracket's looking like so far. Couple upsets, couple obvious choices, but I think round 2, this is where the money gets made. A lot of interesting matchups. So let's start. Round 2, first game in the South, top left. Auburn versus Louisville. Like I said, I think Louisville or Creighton, really a flip of a coin, I think, in that game. But Auburn, obviously so dominant this season. The number 1 overall seed, best team in the country, according to the committee. But I think Auburn's just too good. They're going to shoot the ball too well. Give me the Auburn Tigers in round 2, beating Louisville. Michigan versus Texas A&M. This is where I might screw myself in this bracket. I'm not really that high on Michigan or A&M this season. It's just weird the way that they shaped out. Because I think UC San Diego can beat Michigan. I think A&M will have an easier time versus Yale, even though I'm not too high on them this year like I have been in the past. But I mean, they're one of the best rebounding teams in the country, especially on the offensive glass. Wade Taylor IV, even though his numbers might be down this year, I still think he's one of the best scorers and playmakers in the country. I mean, if you just tell me who's better, Texas A&M or Michigan, I would say Texas A&M, but I didn't want to take either of these teams deep this year. They would match up versus Auburn, who I still think would win that game, even though it might be a more interesting matchup, A&M and Auburn, because A&M already beat Auburn this season. This is definitely a tough game for me. This one's definitely tough. Let's see. I have been high on A&M in the past, and they have disappointed me and lost early. So maybe if I'm not so high on A&M this year, they might disappoint me again. Little reverse psychology and end up making a deep run. Like I said, if you said who's better, Michigan or A&M, if those two face each other, I think A&M, screw it. I'm just going to go with Texas A&M in this one. Ole Miss versus Iowa State, as I have it, like I said, I could see UNC or San Diego State beating them. UNC, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that. But Ole Miss, I thought they would have a decent season. Again, they fought through the SEC, ended up with a 6 seed in this tournament. Iowa State, at times, they have honestly looked like the number 1 team in the country. Then they lost a game or two here or there, dealt with a lot of injuries. But like I said, Tamin Lipsey, I don't think he's one of the best players in the country or anything like that, but he's definitely reliable, a good ball handler, good on-ball defender. They have some other guys that can score the ball. Ole Miss, I think it's just had its up and downs this season as well. I don't really know about an upset here with Ole Miss. I think Iowa State, TJ Otzelberger, get a bigger shirt, but he knows how to run a team, going with the Cyclones over the Ole Miss Rebels in round 2. Marquette versus Michigan State. I think this is a good matchup. Like I said earlier, a lot of people high on Michigan State this year, taking them to the championship, taking them to the Final Four. They are a good team. The games I've watched, they have been relentless on defense, a good rebounding team, typical Tom Izzo team. They don't really have that go out and get me a bucket type of offensive player, but overall, their starters and the bench, a solid offensive team. Marquette as a 7 seed, I think they have the potential to be pretty dangerous in this tournament. They have guys that can score the ball. They're also tough and physical. Stevie Mitchell, I think this will have to be a really good game for him, especially on the offensive and defensive glass. Cam Jones has to show up and put up 25 points, hit a couple 3-pointers. Michigan State, the 2 seed, Marquette coming in as the 7. I think they'll escape an upset in round 1 versus New Mexico, even though I think it'll be a close game. I might be a little crazy here. Give me Marquette over Michigan State in round 2. That's going to upset a lot of people, but I believe in Marquette. I think they're a good team, and I think they have what it takes to take down Michigan State in that matchup. Florida versus UConn. I think this will be a really good matchup as well. UConn, I think they could lose that first-round game versus Oklahoma. I just don't think Oklahoma is really that good to begin with. Outside of its freshman point guard, Jeremiah Fears, they don't really have much more going for them. So I think UConn will be able to handle business in that game, but a really tough matchup in round 2 versus Florida. Before the brackets were released, Florida, they were my team. I said, without a doubt, they're going Final Four, maybe even further. And, I mean, they get a tough matchup here just based off of head coach and experience with the Huskies. But I think Florida just way too good. Taking the Gators to beat the Huskies. Continuing on in the West, Memphis versus Maryland, two teams that I low-key liked a lot coming in to really the conference tournaments, and now that the brackets have been released. Memphis, PJ Haggerty, he's just so good. That offense can score at will, especially Haggerty's top 5 in scoring average. Dane Danger, as I mentioned in part 1, the transfer, he's been playing really well, just a big body down low. He can score, defend, rebound down in the paint. I think this will be, if this ends up being the matchup, Memphis versus Maryland, I think it'll be a good one. Memphis, the 5 seed again, the seeding just scares me that they have to advance out of that round 1. I just think Memphis scoring will be too much for Maryland in this game. Give me the Tigers to advance to round 2. Tell you what, if Florida and Memphis end up playing each other in the Sweet 16, that game might end up with a total over 200 points. Take the over right now if that's even possible. Two of the best offenses in the country. I mean, Florida, I'm just really high on them. Their backcourt, Elijah Martin, Walter Clayton Jr., and Will Richard. I just think that's one of the best backcourts, if not the best backcourt in the country. I'll get back to that when I circle back for the Sweet 16, but that has the possibility to be a really good matchup there between Florida and Memphis. Drake versus Texas Tech. Drake, low-key, really good team. You see their stats, see some of their wins. You know that they're a good team. Texas Tech, I think, is a really good team, however, and I think it'll be a close game. Drake, definitely a Cinderella story type team, a sleeper in this tournament. But again, like I said in part 1, Texas Tech, really good on offense, solid, I think I said really solid on defense. JT Toppin, one of the best players in the country. They handle the ball well, handle business. So I just think the Red Raiders will be too much for Drake in that round 2 game. Texas Tech into the Sweet 16. Oh, this is the one that might get me in trouble. Like I said in part 1, I wanted Kansas or Arkansas to go deep in this tournament. They happened to be matched up against each other in the first round. I think Kansas experienced enough to get through to round 2 since the beginning of the year. Through their ups and downs, I said Kansas will be good, make a deep run in the tournament. But now in round 2, they have the possibility of facing St. John's, who throughout the year has been one of the best teams in the country. Rick Pitino, really good job with them this year. I mean, this will be a tough, if I pick Kansas in this game, it'll be really tough for them to win. I think their defense is going to have to show up, play extremely well, force St. John's to take bad shots. Kansas, if they can rebound well, which I think they're capable of doing with Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams, even Badunga down low coming off the bench. I mean, experienced St. John's, hasn't been this good in a lot of years. And Kansas, they have that experience. They have those winning players in DeJuan Harris, AJ Storr, the transfer. I might get in trouble for this one, get myself in trouble. If you don't like it, don't take it. But I'm confident. I'm going with it. Kansas is beating St. John's in round 2 to advance to the Sweet 16. Yes, you heard that right. Kansas is beating St. John's in round 2. Now we move to the East. Duke, with or without Cooper Flagg, we don't really know at this point, facing Baylor in the second round or Mississippi State. I think it'll be Baylor just because I think they're a better team overall. I think Baylor's a solid team, confident with them in round 1, but Duke, again, I just think too good for most teams in the country. You know, they only lost 3 or 4 games so far this season. I think as we get further into the bracket, not having Cooper Flagg is going to be a problem for them, but Tyrese Proctor's been playing really well. Con Knipple, who I said in a YouTube video that I posted about the favorites in this tournament, if he doesn't play well or doesn't shoot well, this team could be in trouble, but Proctor, he's got the experience. Zion James has played really well for them. So I think this game will be closer than a lot of people might think because Baylor can still rebound. They have some decent size, but in the end, I think it'll be the Duke Blue Devils advancing to the Sweet 16. Surprise, surprise. Here's where my bracket starts to get a little bit crazy. In round 2, we have Liberty versus Akron, the 12 versus the 13. Seems like every once in a while, once every 2 years, we get a 12 versus 13 matchup. I think it's happening here. Liberty upsetting Oregon, Akron taking down Arizona. Two good offenses, two teams with guards capable of controlling the tempo and really controlling the game if they have to. Akron last year, a little bit of a Cinderella story throughout the regular season, but of course couldn't make a deep tournament run. But Liberty, I think low-key can be sneaky this year. So I'm going with the 12 seed. Liberty matching up against Duke in the Sweet 16. VCU versus Wisconsin. I think this could easily be BYU versus Wisconsin. I'm pretty confident, pretty sold that Wisconsin's going to beat Montana. But that BYU-VCU game, I hope I get to watch it. I'm excited to watch that one. I think that can make or break a lot of people's brackets, and a lot of people are high on BYU this year. Rightfully so. I think they're really good offensively, defensively. They can shoot the shit out of the three. I think I said those exact words in my Part 1 video. But VCU, I watched them throughout the A-10 tournament. They just chuck up threes relentlessly, which obviously if you want to live or die by that in the tournament, that's up to you. But they're a good rebounding team as well. Shulga, their point guard, the A-10 player of the year. He was calm, confident with the ball. Wisconsin, though, I just think is a solid team overall. Tonje, everybody knows. If you've watched Big Ten basketball this year, you know how good this dude is. This is a tough one for me, I think, because I think both these teams capable of making a semi-deep run. I'd be more confident in Wisconsin, but VCU, they looked good, not going to lie, when I watched them the last couple weeks of the season. They either get St. Mary's or Bama in that next round. St. Mary's, I think, is capable of putting up a good fight versus Alabama. Again, Bama, just the way Bama runs offense is just nuts. Defensively, they're good at stopping the three ball as well, and that definitely helps them with the way that they chuck up threes and just run and shoot within the first 8 seconds of the shot clock every possession. Wisconsin, I thought they were capable of making a deeper run before I saw the bracket, but now that they're matched up against VCU, a team that's typically a solid team in the tournament, they're high energy as well, good offensive team, they can rebound. Wisconsin with Tonje, I mean, they're just a good team. Damn it. All right, VCU, Wisconsin. And I kind of got to protect myself a little bit here because if BYU wins and makes a deeper run, I'm missing out on points and whatever, how that works out. Wisconsin versus BYU, that would be a good matchup as well. Kind of a flip of a coin there for me. This one's really tough. VCU, Wisconsin, VCU, Wisconsin, VCU, Wisconsin. This side of the bracket, I got some upsets. Of course, you need those in your bracket. But VCU over Wisconsin, I just don't know if that is possible. It definitely is possible, but oh man, now I'm stuck. Now this video is going to be 45 minutes because I can't decide who's going to win, VCU or Wisconsin. Let's see. Matchup, play St. Mary's or Bama. I'm just going to pull the trigger. We're going to go with Wisconsin over VCU. I feel like that might have been more difficult than it should be. The team playing Wisconsin, St. Mary's, or Alabama. Bama, proven to be one of the best teams in the country, obviously. I think offensively, they're really good. St. Mary's, a solid defensive team who can rebound the ball. They don't take a whole lot of threes, but they're capable of making them efficiently. I just don't think it's enough to be able to keep up with Alabama's offense. So this one, an easier decision, taking Bama over St. Mary's. Houston versus Gonzaga in the Midwest. I said it in part 1. If this happens to be an actual matchup in this game, it's going to be a really good game. Ryan Nembhard on Gonzaga. I think he's the perfect type of point guard to be able to handle that Houston Cougars defense. I mean, they can score the ball. They're still one of the best scoring teams in the country. They make their free throws. They don't turn it over too much, thanks to Nembhard, one of the leaders in assist-to-turnover ratio this year. Houston, I said it in my favorites video up on this channel last week. I mean, their defense, obviously, they gave up 58 points per game, best in the country. But offensively, that could worry me a little bit. Jawan Roberts was also in a walking boot in that Big 12 championship game. Milos Uzan, you heard my praise about him in that video if you watched it, or on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. He's been playing so well the second half of the season that really elevates that Houston offense. Joseph Tugler, JoJo Tugler, whatever you want to call him. He's a force to be reckoned with on the defensive side. Tough to guard around the rim for lobs and tip-ins. He can grab offensive rebounds. But Gonzaga, I think, also has the size to go up against those type of guys. We saw Francis get more minutes in that Big 12 championship game for Houston. He played well. LJ Cryer, an experienced point guard. It's going to be a great guard matchup regardless of how this game turns out. Cryer versus Nembhard. A lot of people have Houston in the Final Four, possibly making it to the championship. But I think I spoke my praise on them on those TikTok videos and the YouTube video. I said I had a feeling that this Houston team's a little bit different from the Houston teams in the past. I think more capable of winning a championship. But now that I see them in the second round versus Gonzaga, has my head spinning a little bit. This might be crazy, but I'm taking the Gonzaga Bulldogs over the Houston Cougars in round 2. I think it'll be a great game either way. Might be a little bit low scoring, but I think Gonzaga has the offense and the guards to be able to compete with Houston, and I can see an upset here. Gonzaga, I think they deserve higher than an 8 seed, and I think they might prove a lot of people wrong this year. Let's see, Clemson versus Purdue. Both of these teams I felt like kind of flew under the radar a little bit this season. Clemson more than Purdue just because Braden Smith just nationally has been so good. Purdue, a good rebounding team on the offensive glass and defensive glass. You can say the same thing about Clemson. It's just a matter of who's going to take care of the ball more and be able to put up more points. I think it's going to come down to the turnover battle. Like I said, Braden Smith, really good with the ball, fantastic player, Big Ten Player of the Year. Clemson, they can get after it on defense. It's not like they're this crazy good defensive team like Houston or Tennessee, but I think just in general, this is a really good game to watch. Clemson versus Purdue. Again, Clemson has to escape that 5-12 upset versus McNeese. That could scare me, but Purdue also has to get past High Point, who a lot of people have been high, no pun intended, on them coming into this tournament. I think it's safer to say that Clemson will beat McNeese. I'm more confident that Clemson will beat McNeese than Purdue is to beat High Point, even though I think Purdue is a little bit different than those Purdue teams in the past, just because I hate Zach Edey, but that's whatever. I'm not a fan of Braden Smith, but he is really good. Clemson, just pulling the trigger here. Clemson's beating Purdue in round 2. This right side of the bracket is just nuts for me. We're just going to have to see how it turns out when the games actually start. Continuing in the Midwest, another crazy prediction I had, Texas facing Xavier in the first 4 game. I think Texas is going to win that game. Trey Johnson's going to match up well versus Illinois. He's going to drop 30 points to beat Illinois in round 1. But then they have to face Kentucky, who offensively, like I said, has been really good this year. I think they're 5th. They ended the year 5th in points per game as a team. Kobe Brea, didn't even mention him in part 1, but he is one of the best, most lethal shooters, not just in the SEC, but the entire country. Their transfer has been playing really well. Andrew Carr, who I lacked to mention when I talk about Kentucky, but he's a solid role player. Mari Williams, Lamont Butler was really good for them so far this year. He's dealt with injuries, but when he's on the floor, you can see the difference defensively. Texas might not even deserve to be in this tournament. They could lose that first 4 game. They could lose to Illinois. I think Kentucky would also have that advantage over Illinois in this matchup, but if it ends up being Kentucky versus Texas, I got to go with the Kentucky Wildcats. Utah State versus Tennessee at the bottom of the Midwest, the bottom right of the bracket. I don't even think UCLA has really any shot. Maybe they'll beat Utah State in that first round, but I think Utah State has that one in the bag. Tennessee, like I said, really good defensively. Like I mentioned in part 1, Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier. Lanier is kind of filled in for Dalton Knecht. He's a similar type player as Knecht for the Volunteers this season. Tennessee, I just think offensively, defensively, too much for Utah State. Tennessee will advance to the Sweet 16. Oh boy, I'm starting to sweat, getting nervous, but there's nothing better than just holding that bracket in your hand, filling it out, putting pen to paper. This was part 2 of me making the perfect bracket, which it will be, I promise you. Part 1 up on this channel as well. Subscribe because I got part 3 coming your way. I'm going to try to do Sweet 16 all the way up to my championship. If not, it'll be going on to part 4. But subscribe. Try to keep up. March is here. We sleep in May.